It began with laughter. Laughter that wasn't kind, but mocking, sharp, and dripping with arrogance. On the tarmac of a private airport, two young black teenagers stood frozen, clutching their backpacks, while a group of crew members sneered at them. These weren't ordinary teens. They were 15-year-old twins, Maya and Malik Robinson, prodigies who had already won international awards in robotics and artificial intelligence. The world knew them as the STEM twins. But to the staff at that private jet terminal, they were just two black kids who didn't look like they belonged. Before I tell you what happened next, let me explain why you need to stick around until the end of this story. Because what started as humiliation on a runway turned into a shocking revelation that silenced an entire crowd and left the world in awe. And by watching this video to the end, you'll see how power, prejudice, and brilliance collided in the most dramatic way possible. But first, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next one. The ordeal began when the twins approached the glossy white jet, boarding passes in hand. The flight attendant at the base of the steps eyed them suspiciously. "I think you're lost," she said curtly. "This flight isn't for tourists. The economy terminal is on the other side." Malik tried to explain, holding up the printed confirmation. "We're supposed to be on this flight. Seats 2A and 2B, the attendant scoffed. "Impossible. Those are VIP seats, reserved for real passengers." She snatched the paper from his hand, barely glancing at it before tearing it in half. "Now step aside before I call security." The twins exchanged a nervous glance. They were used to being underestimated, too black, too brilliant for people to believe their achievements. But this sting felt different. They had just returned from Switzerland, where they had been crowned champions at an international STEM competition, defeating teams from Ivy League schools and world-renowned universities. Yet here they were, treated like intruders. The tension rose as the pilot himself descended the stairs. His expression was firm, his voice laced with irritation. "I don't know how you got past the gates, but this aircraft isn't a playground. I suggest you leave immediately." Maya's chest tightened. "Sir, we have every right to be here. We're passengers." "Enough!" the pilot barked, cutting her off. "Do you think because you've watched planes on YouTube, you can just waltz in here? Not on my jet." As his words echoed across the tarmac, a couple of wealthy passengers waiting nearby began whispering, their eyes lingering with disdain. One woman chuckled under her breath, shaking her head. "Some people just don't know their place." Security was called. Two uniformed men approached, their hands already resting on their holsters. "Kids, it's time to move along," one of them said coldly. At that moment, the humiliation hit its peak. The twins were being treated like criminals for daring to stand where they belonged. Their hearts pounded with equal parts fear and rage. Malik clenched his fists, but Maya grabbed his hand, whispering, "Don't, just breathe." The suspense thickened as the security guards reached for their radios, preparing to escort them away. Just when it seemed the twins would be dragged off the runway in front of everyone, a sleek black limousine rolled up to the edge of the tarmac. The door opened, and out stepped a tall man in an immaculate navy suit. His presence commanded silence. His stride was slow but purposeful as he approached the unfolding scene. The mocking laughter died instantly, replaced by murmurs of curiosity. "Dad!" Maya cried, relief washing over her face. The man was none other than David Robinson, the billionaire tech mogul, founder of one of the most powerful aerospace and robotics companies in the world. He wasn't just wealthy. He was a visionary whose inventions had revolutionized global travel and security. The moment he arrived, the balance of power shifted. "What's going on here?" David's voice was calm, but its weight was undeniable. The pilot straightened, suddenly pale. The attendant fidgeted nervously, while the security guards froze mid-step. "These kids tried to board without authorization," the attendant stammered. "We were just protecting the integrity of the flight." David's eyes narrowed as he glanced at his twins, then back at the staff. His tone sharpened. "These kids are my children, Maya and Malik Robinson. They're not only ticketed passengers, they are the reason this jet exists today. My company built it, and your arrogance has just humiliated my family in front of the world." Gasps rippled through the onlookers. Cameras from passengers' phones began recording, the very people who mocked the twins minutes ago. now scrambled to capture the moment they realized just how wrong they were. The pilot's voice cracked. "Mr. Robinson, I didn't know." "That's the problem," David cut him off. "You didn't care to know. You judged them before you even looked. And now, the entire world will know exactly how you treat people you think don't belong." The climax hit like thunder. The twins, who had been moments away from public disgrace, now stood taller than anyone around them. Malik stepped forward, his voice shaking but strong. "We've spent years proving that brilliance has no color. But today you proved that prejudice still blinds people, even when the truth is right in front of them." The crowd was silent. The shame hung thick in the air. David placed a hand on his son's shoulder, pride gleaming in his eyes. "Well said, son." Then he turned to the staff, his expression icy. "Every person who played a part in this will answer for it. My legal team will make sure of that." The flight attendant's face crumbled. The pilot looked like he wanted the ground to swallow him whole. Security quietly retreated, realizing the tables had completely turned. As the family boarded the jet, escorted by a newly respectful crew, Maya glanced back through the window. She saw the embarrassed faces, the whispered apologies, the silent stares. For the first time, the world saw the truth. That genius and dignity had triumphed over arrogance and prejudice. But just as the jet's engines roared to life, a shadow of unease crept in. A rival tech executive, seated 2 rows behind, watched the Robinsons with narrowed eyes. He pulled out his phone and sent a message that would change everything. "They're gaining too much attention. Time to cut them down." The twins had won the battle on the runway, but the war for their future was only just beginning. If you've been enjoying this incredible story so far, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you never miss my latest uploads. Now, let's get back into the story, because what happened next will leave you stunned. But what they didn't know was that someone had been watching them closely from the shadows of the jet cabin. A man dressed in an expensive suit, his eyes sharp and calculating, had been seated just a few rows behind them. He wasn't just another wealthy passenger. He was Victor Kane, CEO of a rival aerospace corporation, and David Robinson's most dangerous competitor. Victor had built his empire on cutthroat deals and dirty tactics. And while David revolutionized technology with integrity, Victor thrived on manipulation, intimidation, and sabotage. Watching the Robinson family command the spotlight on that runway made his blood boil. He knew that if the world embraced the STEM twins as the face of the future, his grip on power would crumble. As the jet soared into the sky, Victor quietly tapped out a message on his phone. "We need to end this Robinson spectacle before it destroys us. Handle it." Hours later, the family landed at a private hangar, where journalists had already gathered, eager to cover the story. News of the confrontation had spread like wildfire, and the world was buzzing about the STEM twins, their brilliance, and the disgraceful treatment they had faced. Cameras flashed as David placed a protective arm around his children, leading them through the crowd. But in the chaos, a reporter shouted a question that pierced the noise. "Mr. Robinson, your competitors are calling this a publicity stunt. How do you respond to claims that you staged the incident for attention?" The air grew tense. The twins froze. Maya's face reddened with anger. Malik muttered under his breath, "Of course they'd say that." David raised his hand for silence. His voice was calm, but his eyes blazed with conviction. "When my children are insulted, that is not a stunt. When brilliance is dismissed because of skin color or age, that is not a performance. That is prejudice. And today, the world saw it live." The crowd erupted with applause, but Victor Kane, watching from the sidelines, smirked. He knew the battle was far from over. The following days became a whirlwind. Interviews, talk shows, and headlines painted Maya and Malik as heroes, symbols of resilience and genius in the face of bigotry. Schools across the country invited them to speak. Tech giants extended offers to fund their projects. The twins, once underestimated, were now celebrated. But behind the scenes, Victor's campaign of sabotage began. Articles appeared online questioning the legitimacy of the twins' competition win. Anonymous sources claimed their father had bought the judges. Bots flooded social media, spreading rumors that the twins had plagiarized their designs. The public, once united in admiration, began to fracture. Supporters defended the family fiercely, while critics demanded proof. The twins' joy turned to frustration. Maya slammed her laptop shut one night, tears brimming in her eyes. "Why do they hate us so much?" David sat beside her, his expression heavy but determined. "Because they fear you. Fear has always been the weapon of the insecure. But remember, truth has a way of cutting through lies." The turning point came at a televised panel debate. David had agreed to appear alongside Victor Kane to address the growing controversy. The twins sat in the audience, their hands clasped tightly. The moderator opened the discussion. "Mr. Robinson, your family has become a global symbol of innovation, but allegations of corruption have clouded your achievements. How do you respond?" Before David could speak, Victor leaned forward, his smile oily. "It's simple. The Robinsons are master manipulators. They exploit their identity and play the victim to gain sympathy. But real innovation requires more than theatrics. It requires credibility." Gasps echoed through the room. The attack was direct, personal, and venomous. Maya's nails dug into her palm, but Malik whispered, "Wait, Dad's got this." David leaned into the microphone, his voice steady. "Mr. Kane speaks of credibility. Let me remind him and all of you that my children won their awards not because of who I am, but because of who they are. Their designs were tested by independent panels, scrutinized by experts, and chosen as the best in the world. That is a fact. What Mr. Kane offers is fear-mongering, and fear is the last refuge of a man who knows he is losing." The room erupted in applause. Cameras zoomed in on Victor's face, his smirk replaced with a twitch of rage. Then David delivered the final blow. "And since Mr. Kane is so concerned with credibility, perhaps he would like to explain why documents from his company show attempts to bribe the very same competition judges he accuses us of influencing." The crowd gasped. Screens behind the panel lit up with leaked documents, exposing Victor's schemes in real time. Victor's face went white. He stammered, That's a lie." But the evidence was undeniable. His empire of deceit had been exposed on live television. Within days, Victor Kane's empire crumbled. Lawsuits piled up, investors fled. His name, once feared in boardrooms, became synonymous with disgrace. Meanwhile, the Robinson family stood taller than ever. The twins were not just brilliant, they were vindicated. Their victory was no longer about awards or recognition. It was about justice. As the dust settled, David addressed the nation in a final interview. With Maya and Malik at his side, he said, "This was never just about us. It was about what happens when people are judged by the color of their skin or the assumptions of others instead of their merit. It was about teaching the world that integrity matters, even when it's hard. And it was about reminding those who stand in the shadows of fear and hate that the light of truth will always prevail." The audience gave a standing ovation. Tears glistened in Maya's eyes as she whispered to Malik, "We won." The story ended with justice served, lies defeated, and a family's dignity restored. Life lesson. Prejudice may wound and lies may spread, but truth always finds its way to the surface, and when it does, no amount of power or wealth can silence it. Now let me ask you this. Do you think the crew members from that jet should also have faced consequences for the way they treated Maya and Malik? Comment your answer below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss my next powerful story.